Now I know what you're thinking, that we've already talked about the best bikes for 2021, but that's not what we're dealing with today. No, today we're taking a look at all the best intermediate naked motorcycles that you can run out and buy, new or used. Now what do I mean when I say intermediate? Well, not too long ago we made a video explaining how the term middleweight makes no sense anymore, and that a better term would be intermediate, a bike that you might grow into after your 300. So we're talking about bikes in the 700 plus cc range that aren't quite crazy enough to reach that hyper naked point. Most of these bikes are going to be making between 90 and 130 horsepower, so we're not talking slow bikes by any means. Also, pretty much every single one of these motorcycles on this list is awesome. So while they are numbered, order's not really super important here. Just go ahead and pick out the one you think is coolest as your number one, and why not let me know down below. There's a lot of bikes on this list, so let's get started right away with number 10, Yamaha's FZ1. If you've ever crossed paths with an FZ1 owner, you know that that bike has some rabid fans. It's basically the grandfather to the modern MT10 based on the pre-crossplane R1 engine and frame. It's got a 998cc inline 4 with 5 valves per cylinder, putting down 146 horsepower and 77 foot-pounds of torque. Starting off strong today. Between the R1 frame and suspension, the FZ1 could hold a line like there's no tomorrow, and with its relaxed ergonomics and half-fairing design, it's super comfortable for an all-day ride or even a cross-country tour. You could get it with hard cases from the factory, and with the addition of some heated grips and a comfier seat, you'll be able to ride this thing all day and not even feel it. In fact, most riders did. If you're looking at picking up one of these bikes used, you'll be lucky to find one under 10,000 miles. Nowadays, 20 to 30,000 is pretty much the standard, but don't let those numbers scare you. These bikes are a lot like the Energizer Bunny. They just keep on ticking. You can normally expect to see FZ1s going between $4,500 and $5,000, but I've seen some pretty good examples going in the mid 3,000s, so deals are out there. I wouldn't suggest going straight from your Ninja 400 to an FZ1, but hey, if you want to know what full plaid really feels like, this is a great way to do it. But how about something modern? Well, you can't go wrong with Kawasaki's Z900. You could start on a Z400, move up to the Z650, realize how boring that 180-degree parallel twins are, and then run out and get yourself a Z900, and then reach the zenith, your final form with the ZH2. It's a full line that goes from the Proto Kyle to straight up cocaine and bath salts destroyer of drywall Kyle, all in one family. But assuming you're a normal person who doesn't need 200 horsepower squid missile in their garage, the Z900 gives you a respectable 125 horsepower and 73 foot-pounds of torque out of its 943cc engine. I know it might sound like 125 horsepowers. Now I know it might sound like 125 horsepower out of almost 1,000 cc's is kinda lame, but remember that it's putting down 73 foot-pounds of torque, and as a street bike, that's really what you want. It means that you can get most of the usable power out of your bike in your normal everyday riding. The 2021 version has traction control, power modes, smartphone connectivity, a TFT dash, and all for $8,999 new, which is a lot of bike for your dollar. It's missing some of the fancier features like quick shifters, Brembo brakes, and all that good stuff, but honestly, those are just nice to have, not essential. I think Kawasaki's strategy of making bikes with only the tech that you need at an affordable price is kind of refreshing in an industry where manufacturers are competing to cram as much tech as humanly possible on a motorcycle. I'm looking at you, RS660. Oh, and before I forget, you can get the Z900 RS, which is a pretty slick neo-retro model based on the same Z900 platform. Speaking of neo-retro bikes, number 7 is the Yamaha XR900. Why no MT09 and MT09 SP, you ask? Because the XSR is going to be cheaper used now that the MT09 update is starting to hit the streets, and because of the different seating position and styling on the bike, it makes a huge difference in how it rides. Yam and I made a whole video breaking down the difference between the MT09 and the XSR900, but to broad stroke it for you, the MT09 is basically a weird supermoto feeling thing that rides and handles kinda funny. The XSR, while it does have the same frame and engine, doesn't feel like it wants to be pushed so hard, and so the flaws in the handling are harder to notice. It pulls like a leader bike from 30 miles an hour and rips the front wheel off the ground, but it's more dignified when it does it. The 847cc triple is putting down 115 horsepower and 65 foot-pounds of torque, and it's still as legendary today as when it came out in 2014. Brand new, the XSR900 will run you $9,499, but you can get them used for around $7,500. And speaking of the MT09, you're too late to get entered to win our MT T09 that we're giving away over on YammieNoob.co, but we've got an RS660 up for grabs right now if you're looking for a free intermediate motorcycle. Or maybe you want a ZH2 or a sneak preview of the new beginner bikes we're going to be revealing soon. Then you got to head over to YammieNoob.co and sign up. You'll get access to the Discord server, which is the best place to hang out with riders from all around the world. But if you're a lone wolf sort of person who doesn't enjoy the comfort of human interaction, then you can head over to YammieNoobMerch.com and earn entries to win with every dollar that you spend. Also, don't forget, if you want to see us slap a turbo on the Busa, you need to subscribe to the channel. We're only going to reveal it at 1 million subs, so you better get to it. Number 6 is the only other neo-retro-ish bike on the list, and it's another mid-2000s naked bike, the Honda CB900F, or the 919, or the Hornet, or any number of other names that Honda gave the motorcycle. Based on the CBR 900RR, the 919 has a 919cc inline 4 putting down 108 horsepower and 67 foot-pounds of torque. It's got a single round front headlight in the correct 7-inch diameter with sweeping dual analog tack and speedo. And while it doesn't have upside down forks, the suspension is fully adjustable. I had one of these bikes for a little over a year, and it was actually my second motorcycle if you don't count going from a street 750 to a street rod, which I don't. And I can say that it's about as raw of a naked bike as you can get. No ABS, no traction control, no nothing. Just a fuel-injected 90s liter bike engine with a cable throttle. You can typically find 919s around $3,000 to $4,500 depending on mileage, but like the FZ1, these have all been around the block a few times. If you're lucky enough to get your hands on one, you're in for a sweet ride. Just mind the throttle position sensor. Number 5 is basically the best Italian naked bike ever made, the Ducati Monster. And you can sub in any Monster here, but given the massive new update for the Monster, you might as well just get one of the newfangled ones. It's packing the 937cc V-twin, putting down 111 horsepower and 69 foot-pounds of torque, and it weighs in at only 366 pounds dry, which is a big deal. Yeah, it doesn't have the trellis frame, but it's so light and nimble now that it's worth losing what is admittedly a very distinguishing feature. But hey, if you must have a trellis frame Monster, there's a boatload of them in the used market. The new Monster has a quick shifter up and down, launch control, TFT dash, all the fancy suspension and brake components you'd expect to see from a motorcycle that costs $11,895. If you want to be fancy, you can get yourself the Monster Plus, which gets you a seat, cowl, a little fairing for the front, and some other goodies for $12,195. Not to mention, if you want to customize this bike from the factory, you can get any number of replacement plastics in a whole bunch of different styles, which means that you don't have to go with that standard Ducati red or black. Also, the Desmos are every 18,000 miles, which is nice because that ain't cheap. Number 4 goes to the Austrian monster, the KTM Duke 890R, or the Super Scalpel. If you don't know, KTM refers to the Super Duke as the sledgehammer, the 790 as the scalpel, and the 890 as the Super Scalpel. Basically, the Super Duke is a crazy powerful bike that handles pretty well, and the 790 is a less powerful and lighter but more agile motorcycle. The 890 is essentially the 790 on steroids with more tech. The 890 is powered by an 890cc parallel twin engine, putting down 119 horsepower and 79 foot-pounds of torque while weighing in at the same 366 pounds dry as the Monster. It's packing fully adjustable WP Apex suspension, a TFT dash, rider modes, including an optional track mode, cornering ABS, up and down quick shifter, Supermoto ABS, and it looks pretty darn sweet. It's not as brutish as the Super Duke, which is a bummer because I like how muscly that look is, but it's a way more manageable bike around town. MSRP, you're looking at $11,999, but I have seen old new stock with these bikes going for about 10 grand at my local KTM dealership. Although that being said, it's basically just a warehouse full of Kyles, so I mean, it's really hard to figure out exactly what they're going to price something one day. It all just goes to how many monsters they've had in the morning. Now, if you'll allow me to simp for KTM for just a minute, I've ridden a handful of KTM motorcycles, and the one thing that always surprised me is how much fun they are to ride. They're an absolute riot. They're light and torquey, and it's impossible to ride a KTM and not have a smile on your face, unless it breaks down, which it happens more than I'd like to admit. But I am just going to go ahead and say that if anybody out there has a spare Super Duke that they don't want anymore, I'll go ahead and take it off your hands. Number 3 goes to the bike that you've never heard of before, the Moto Guzzi Grizzo. Yep, told you. Unfortunately, they don't make the Grizzo anymore, but it's pretty much the closest thing that Guzzi ever had to a sport bike. It has an 1151cc longitudinally mounted V-twin, because of course it did, and despite being air-cooled, it made 108 horsepower and 80 foot-pounds of torque, which is pretty darn zesty. It was a little heavy at 489 pounds dry, and it had a long wheelbase, which puts it in closer competition with something like the R9T than your typical naked bike, but I wanted to throw in a curveball because, hey, it's my list. If you want a sporty naked bike, but something that's going to confuse all of your big four friends, the Grizzo's the way to go. It'll cost you between 7 and 9 grand, but hey, you can't put a price on style. Number 2 goes to the BMW F900R, probably one of the cheapest BMW sport bikes out there at only 9 grand. But don't let that fool you, it still means business. While it is only putting down 99 horsepower and 67 foot-pounds of torque, which is a bit of a bummer, it's got more tech than the Z900 and the MT09, which are its main competition. Admittedly, you do need to pay a premium to get the tech packages, which takes the bike into the $11,000 range, but the neat thing is that you can basically pick your poison. If you want the dad mode package, it's $1,000 extra for the GPS, heated grip, tire pressure monitor, cruise control, and saddlebags, but you can get the fast boy package with the cruise control, dynamic suspension adjustment, quick shifter, TFT dash, adjustable braking, keyless ignition, traction control, and a whole bunch of other goodies. Though you do have to pay for the Ascended Fastboy package for the electronic suspension stuff. It might not have a soul, but it is a good bike. Number 1 goes to the Triumph Street Triple RS. Guys, help. Yam said that if I don't put the triple in the number 1 spot, he's gonna throw my DRZ into a quarry. Wait a second. Number 1 goes to the KTM 690 SMCR. I'm just kidding. The Street Triple RS is a no-brainer. If you want a great power plant, velvety throttle feel, and a premium build quality, there is no better bike on the market in this segment, in my opinion. I've gone on and on about the bike at this point, so to save you all the headache, I'm just going to tell you that it's the sportiest naked bike out there. You can carve a corner on your favorite back road, ride to the office, and hit a track all on one motorcycle. It's spicy at $12,850, but it is worth that price tag. There, look, I said it was good. Can I have my motorcycle back now? Fact: Chinese checkers was invented in Germany.
Oh, didn't see you there. Why don't you watch this video right over here while you're at it? Because this one's over, actually. There's nothing left to see. But if you click this one right here, you could keep watching your sweet Papa Yam on video. Here, on the internet, on YouTube. Click the video. Do it.